is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize that someone you have been trying desperately to reach has simply stopped seeing you. Not because you disappeared, not because you did something wrong, but because you were always there, always available, always trying. And somehow, the more you tried, the less you mattered. This is not a coincidence. It is not cruelty. It is something far more unsettling. It is psychology working exactly the way it is supposed to. And once you understand what is actually happening beneath the surface of these dynamics, you will never approach another human relationship the same way again. Because here is the thing no one tells you. The very act of chasing someone, a friend, a lover, a colleague, a family member, is often the precise reason they begin to pull away. And the moment you stop, that is when something shifts. Not just in them, in you. Human beings have been studying attraction, influence, and social dynamics for centuries. And over again, they arrive at the same uncomfortable paradox. The more attention you pour into certain people, the less they seem to value what you offer. The more effort you extend, the more invisible your effort becomes. The more you make yourself available, the more you are quietly, almost unconsciously, taken for granted. Psychologists call aspects of this reactance, scarcity, and perceived value. Philosophers have observed it for millennia. And yet, when you are living inside it, when you are the one sending the third unanswered message, or bending your entire schedule around someone who barely remembers yours, theory offers little comfort. What you need is not a trick, not a manipulation tactic, not some calculated strategy designed to make people want you. What you need is a fundamental rethinking of why you are chasing in the first place, and what it is actually costing you.
To understand why we chase, you have to go back further than you might expect. Back to before language, back to before culture, back to the deep, ancient architecture of the human brain. You are a social creature, not metaphorically, biologically. Your nervous system was literally shaped by thousands of years of tribal living, where belonging was not a preference, but a survival strategy. To be cast out of the group meant death. To be ignored, unseen, or devalued was not merely uncomfortable, it was dangerous. That old wiring has not gone anywhere. It still runs quietly in the background of every interaction you have. When someone you care about grows distant, your brain does not simply register disappointment. It sounds an alarm. And that alarm pushes you to do the one thing it has always done to restore connection. Try harder. Reach further. Give more. So you send another message. You offer another favor. You soften your boundaries a little more. You make yourself more agreeable, more flexible, more present, hoping that if you just give enough, the distance will close and the connection will return. This is the chasing trap. And it is not a character flaw. It is evolution doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here is the problem. The ancestral world that built this response was small and relatively stable. The threat of social exclusion was real and immediate. The modern world is neither, and yet your nervous system cannot tell the difference. It treats a friend who has gone quiet the same way it once treated the possibility of exile. And so it pushes you to overcorrect, to become smaller, louder, needier, more accommodating, in ways that, paradoxically, accelerate the very rejection you are trying to prevent. Psychologists who study attachment patterns have documented this dynamic extensively. People who grow up with inconsistent emotional availability, parents who are sometimes warm and sometimes withdrawn, often develop what is called an anxious attachment style. They become hypervigilant to signs of disconnection. They pursue closeness intensely. And the more someone pulls away, the harder they lean in. Not because they are weak, but because their brain learned early on that love was something you had to earn by chasing it. Now here is where the psychology becomes genuinely uncomfortable. Because the question is not just why you chase. The deeper question is, what does your chasing do to the person on the other side? In social psychology, there is a well-documented phenomenon around scarcity and perceived value. Things that are rare feel more precious. Things that are abundantly and effortlessly available feel less so. This is not just about economics or consumer behavior. It operates in human relationships with striking consistency. When you are always there, always responsive, always accommodating, always ready to renegotiate your needs to meet someone else's, you remove a crucial element from the equation. The sense that your presence is something earned, something chosen, something that exists within limits. And paradoxically, it is those very limits that signal value. This is not about playing games. It is about what happens at a deeply automatic, often unconscious level of the mind. When someone knows they can have your full attention with zero effort, their brain begins to classify that attention as ambient, like background noise. It registers, but it does not move them. It does not generate the sense of meaning or weight that attention carries when it is given selectively. There is also something that happens to your perceived sense of self in these dynamics. When you chase, you are not just signaling availability, you are also signaling something about how you see yourself. Every extra message, every lowered boundary, every time you absorb mistreatment in silence rather than address it, it communicates a quiet but unmistakable message. I do not believe I am worth your effort without earning it. And here is the devastating truth. People tend to take you at your own estimation. Not consciously, not cruelly. But if you treat your own time, your own feelings, your own needs as secondary, as things to be offered up in service of the connection you are trying to preserve, others will often, without even realizing it, agree with that hierarchy. They will begin to treat you exactly the way you treat yourself. Respect is not given to those who ask for it most loudly or most persistently. It tends to move toward those who appear not to require external confirmation of their worth. Those who seem to have already decided, on their own terms, that they matter. There comes a moment, and if you have ever lived through it, you know exactly what it feels like. When you just stop. Not because you found some strategic insight, not because someone told you to, but because you ran out. Out of energy, out of hope, out of the specific kind of denial it takes to keep trying when something deep inside you has already understood that it is not working. This moment is rarely dramatic. It does not usually arrive with clarity or resolution. It arrives, more often than not, as a kind of quiet exhaustion. You are sitting with your phone in your hand, composing another message you are not sure you should send, and something in you simply puts it down. Not forever, maybe, but for now. You just stop. And then the loneliness comes in. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. This part is genuinely hard, because the silence you have chosen is the same silence that terrified you, and your brain, still running its ancient alarm systems, will tell you that you have made a terrible mistake, that you should reach out again, that the relationship is repairable if you just try once more, say the right thing, find the right words.
You will wonder if you are being proud when you should be humble. You will question whether your withdrawal is self-respect or self-sabotage. You will rehearse conversations that may never happen, and you will grieve something that, in many cases, was already gone long before you admitted it. This is the part of the story that motivational content tends to skip over. The loneliness of disentangling your sense of worth from someone else's response to you. It is not a single decision. It is a series of small, quiet, often painful choices to not reach out, to not explain yourself again, to not apologize for having needs, to sit with the discomfort of your own company and let it mean something other than failure.
But something else is happening in this silence, even when it does not feel like it. Something is beginning to reorganize. Without the constant outward reaching, without the exhausting work of trying to manage how someone else perceives you, your attention begins, slowly, reluctantly at first, to turn inward. And what it finds there is not the emptiness you feared. It finds you. The psychological shifts that happen when you stop seeking external validation are among the most documented and least discussed transformations in the literature of human behavior. They are quiet, they are gradual, and they are real. The first thing that changes is not your confidence. It is your attention. When you stop putting enormous psychic energy into how someone else is responding to you, that energy has to go somewhere. And it begins, almost involuntarily, to go toward the things that are actually within your reach. Your work, your own thoughts, the relationships that are already mutual and unhurried, the parts of your life that have been quietly waiting for you to come back to them. Over time, this reallocation of attention builds something that chasing never could. A relationship with yourself that does not require constant maintenance through external confirmation. You begin to notice what you actually think, separate from what you hope someone else might think of you. You begin to make decisions based on what you actually want, rather than what you imagine might make you more appealing, more acceptable, more worth keeping around. And here is where something strange, and often unexpected, begins to happen in the social world around you. The people who once absorbed your attention without much reciprocity begin to notice the shift. Not always, not guaranteed, but often enough that it is not a coincidence. Because the version of you that was chasing was communicating constant emotional urgency, a kind of ambient neediness that, however understandable, is not particularly magnetic. And the version of you that has stopped? That person carries something different. It is not aloofness. It is not performance. It is simply the quality of someone who has decided, not dramatically, not cruelly, but finally and genuinely, that they are worth being around, without having to earn it in every interaction. And that quality is genuinely rare. Rare things attract attention. This is the irony that lives at the center of so many human relationships. The pursuit of closeness, when driven by fear rather than fullness, tends to push closeness away. And the act of releasing that pursuit, of choosing your own stability over someone else's unpredictable attention, often creates the very gravitational pull that no amount of chasing ever could. But this is where the lesson gets complicated, and where it is easy to get it wrong. Because if you walk away from this understanding, thinking that the goal is to make people chase you, you have missed the point entirely. You have only replaced one form of external dependence with another. One obsession, please want me, with its mirror image, now I will make you want me. Both are still organized around the same center, someone else's perception of your worth. The actual transformation that becomes available to you, the one that is genuinely life-altering, is not about social strategy. It is about the discovery that your sense of self does not require external confirmation to be stable. That you can walk into a room without needing anyone in that room to see you in a particular way. That your value is not a proposition you need to keep proving. It is a fact you can simply inhabit.
Self-worth that is built on the inside, on a consistent, honest relationship with your own thoughts, your own integrity, your own chosen values, is a fundamentally different thing from self-confidence that depends on approval. The latter collapses when the approval stops. The former does not. It may be challenged, it may be tested, but it has a foundation that does not shift with every change in someone else's mood or attention. This is what psychologists mean when they talk about internal locus of control, the sense that the primary source of meaning in your life originates from within you, rather than from the responses of others. It does not mean you stop caring about people. It does not mean you become isolated or emotionally unavailable. It means the architecture of your self-esteem is no longer hanging from a hook that someone else controls. So here is what you are left with. Not a strategy, not a technique. Something closer to a question, one that is worth sitting with long after this ends. Who would you be if you were not trying to earn anyone's approval right now? Not the approval of the person who has been distant. Not the approval of the people watching your life from the outside. Not even the approval of the version of yourself you think you are supposed to be by now. If all of that fell away, if the scorecard disappeared, what would you actually do with your time? What would you want? What would feel worth building? Because that, whatever you just found in that silence, is where your real life is waiting for you.
Not in the messages you have been debating sending. Not in the relationships you've been contorting yourself to preserve. Not in the version of yourself that knows exactly how to be smaller, quieter, easier, and more convenient for everyone around you. The people who will ultimately matter most in your life will not be the ones you had to chase. They will be the ones who found you after you stopped running. After you stood still long enough in your own life that someone could actually see where you were, and what you were doing there, and why. Respect, in the end, is not something you persuade people into. It is something you stop asking permission for. And the moment you genuinely stop asking, not as a tactic, not as a performance, but because you have finally, quietly decided that you are enough, something in the room changes. The air changes. And people feel it, even when they cannot name it. Stop chasing, not to make them notice, but because you are finally, at long last, worth coming home to.